Your alternative talk radio contact. The Planet. KGRAradio.com.
With infinite complacence, people went to and fro of the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design, man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
Hi, Shannon. It's Mark Muncie from Erie, Florida. Wanted to give you a little story update for one of the things we're doing for your Christmas special. Many, many years ago, a hotel that we are writing about in the new book called the Bellevue Biltmore in Clearwater. It's one of the old famous buildings built in the early 1800s. And it was being closed down. They were tearing it down. They couldn't get the money to fix it. And it was really sad, and a lot of us knew about the haunted third floor, so we all wanted to go see that. So a local ghost hunting group and I went out to the last day of the Bellevue Biltmore, and they had costume people there all dressed up as bellhops and things from the period and all that stuff, and it was very cool. And we were there looking for Hellevue Cemetery props, thinking, oh, they're going to auction off some of the stuff. And, of course, a lot of it was being auctioned super expensive. But while we were there, we're like, you know what? Let's sneak up to the third floor. We got all these ghost hunters with us. Let's go up to the third floor one last time. And we take the elevator, and we get up to the third floor. And at the end of the hall, we're looking down at the secret room, and a bellhop comes out. And we're like, oh, man, they even knew we'd be here. So they sent one of the bellhop costume guys up. And the bellhop walks over at us. And we go, as we're walking by, I go to the guy, hey, good job. And the other guy next to me is like, yeah, that was great. And then the girl next to us went, hey, who are you talking to? She didn't see him. And we quickly turn around to get a picture of the guy, and he's gone. And that was our ghost experience, and this goes to show you, not everybody can see them. And they were ghost hunters. They were prepared. They had cameras, they had equipment, and we had a full apparition walk right past us, and nobody took a picture. But anyway, the Bellevue Biltmore is been torn down partially. Some of it was saved. A lot of it was actually saved, and is being opened as the Bellevue Inn, and we are going there Christmas Eve for dinner. So we will be thinking about you there, and I will be wondering if I can sneak up to the third floor. Have a Merry Christmas, and see you all on the other side.
Hey Shannon, this is Chaz calling from Las Vegas. I had a paranormal encounter that you may be interested in. About 10 years ago, some friends of mine and myself investigating the Amargosa Opera House and Spooky Hollow area out in Amargosa. So if you've ever been down in the Spooky Hollow area, you'll know what it looks like, but let me describe it. It's basically a long hallway with dormitory rooms off of each side where workers used to live in while they were working out there. People that have investigated out there know of one spirit out there who's a pretty angry male spirit, and his room tends to be clear down on the end of the hallway, on the opposite end of the entrance back there on the left-hand side. So you'll know that he's around because you get the strong smell of ammonia and cat urine. Anyways, we were down on the opposite end at the entrance where you walk around the corner and you can see down the entire hallway. So some friends of mine and I were standing there, and I saw what looked to be a dog or a wolf of some sort come out of his room and cross the hallway and go into the room on the other side. So I took off running down there once I saw it and got down there, and there was nothing there in either room. The smell of cat urine was heavy at that point, so I knew he was around somewhere, but I couldn't see anything. And please keep in mind, the only way to get out of there would be to go past me as I was running down the hallway. So my friends come down the hallway, and I said, "Did you guys see that?" They're like, "Yeah, where'd that dog go?" So all three of us saw what appeared to be the spirit animal of a dog or a wolf of some sort down there, and it was nowhere to be found. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I can still see it in my mind's eye as if it happened 5 minutes ago. Pretty crazy stuff. Well, anyway, have a good night. Enjoy the show, and congratulations on your gig on MITD. All right, take care.
So, the first encounter I ever had, it's very, very hard to talk about. It's very bizarre. But I was maybe 5 years old. I know this sounds cliche and corny, but I walked down into the basement with my mother when she was doing laundry. And there was a side room in the basement of that house where the water heater was. I walked over, like as a little 5-year-old kid, whatever, walking around, walked over that side room with the water heater, and I don't know what to call it. There was just this being there. This is an entity, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what to call it. It's so hard to explain. It's hard to talk about. I don't. It was just like, it was like black figure, but it was a dark room, but the figure was darker than the room. It was bizarre. It's so strange to talk about. And it was just this like shadow figure, and it didn't frighten me. I didn't feel threatened. I wasn't scared. But I stood there and I watched it for maybe almost a minute, like a while, like a good while, just standing there. Then I went over, I went over to the other part of the basement and told my mom, I was like, "Hey, there's someone in there in the room." And my mom was like, "No, that you're full of shit. Like you don't know what you're talking about." But yeah, that was the first time I experienced something strange. And then after that, I mean, it was like a can of worms opened, and that whole house was just full of bizarre activity until we moved out of there. It went on for a long time. But yeah, that was my first like what the experience. It was very bizarre, and it was maybe 25 years ago, and I think about it every day. That image is burned in my brain. I can see it clear as day.
Hi, Shannon. It's Arno and Karen.
Hi, Shannon.
Yeah, so we grew up in this old farmhouse that my dad had bought in Ludlow, Mass. And there was all kinds of creepy stories there. There was, 7 kids. And, everyone had a story. Sleep paralysis happened all the time to me. Never anywhere else, but I could never sleep on my back in that house.
You'd wake up and you start dreaming that you were suffocating, and you'd wake up and you couldn't even
you couldn't
breathe.
Move or anything. You always felt like you had to run up the stairs, like someone was chasing you.
We used to run down the hallway and up the stairs. Everywhere we went, we'd run. If we had to go upstairs by ourselves, we'd run every time. Even my mom, when they first moved in, said she felt like she had to run up the stairs. We used to just be so scared. And the hallway wasn't original to the house. My dad put it in because it was a couple big, huge bedrooms that were all connected with no hallway. So my dad put in a hallway. So we're thinking most of the time, a lot of the creepy stuff happened in the hallway. So it might have been because he remodeled it. But it was really scary. My mom, the first ghost story we had from there was my mom. I think I was a baby. I was probably 1, maybe not even. I must have been 1 or 2 or something. and she saw a light bulb-shaped head of an old woman, bluish green, she said, and it looked like shaped like a light bulb, and the head was swaying, and it was calling the name Frederick. And it was like, Frederick. The way my mom described it is really creepy. And she loves to tell us these stories right before we're going to bed. But she woke up, and it scared her after death. She had to go to the bathroom, and she didn't want to get up and go. And then, but it's calling the name Frederick, and there's nobody in our family ever with that name. And then, like, a couple weeks later, my sister and brother were playing outside in the barn, and there was a heart carved into one of the beams that said Fred and Sue. And then just like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I researched a lot on the house, and there was 2 people that lived there that were named Frederick. So that was really weird. My sister heard like wild animal noise coming out of her pile of junk she was sorting in the hallway one time. It scared her half to death. She like ran down the stairs. She also heard banging on the windows in the dining room when she was home alone. She was sitting in the living room, and she was bang, 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 do, like banging on the windows. And she jumped up a mile and she ran in there, and there was nothing outside that was making that noise. There was no wind, nothing.
I heard that a couple of times too. And sitting in the living room, like the whole side of the house was like a giant hand was just banging on the wall.
Yeah,
you know?
And there
what the hell was that?
The windows, the windows were really cheap storm glass too. If someone was actually banging on it, they would have broke it, but it wasn't. It was just rattling. It was really scary. My sister saw a lot of the stuff that happened too, and she saw my grandmother in her room, like looking over her, that passed away a long time ago, and my mom saw my dad after he passed away. We've seen family members too, but mostly it was just like real evil presence. Like you could feel like something was watching you. There was one story that Arno and I both kind of had happen at the same time, the same night. Well, same night, but a couple hours apart. I was up. I just realized everybody had already gone to bed, and I never wanted to stay up after everyone went to bed. We all went to bed at the same time because no one wanted to be downstairs, like, up late. So I was doing something, writing a letter or something, and my back was to the living room door. I was in the dining room, but I could see into the living room, like, and I just felt like something was watching me, and it scared me so bad. I just left all the lights on and just ran upstairs. I said, I'm going to get in trouble tomorrow, but I don't even care. I was so creeped out. It felt like something was watching me, and I couldn't take it anymore.
So Karen ran up the stairs. She was terrified, and something in the corner, she felt presence there. I got home. I was playing a gig. I got home and put my amp down and the guitar, and I was like, geez, why is the lights all on, you know? And all of a sudden, I started getting a creepy feeling like someone was watching me, and something didn't want me there, and it just felt evil and creepy, and I just got all creeped out, and I like shut the light off, and I ran through the living room and upstairs to my room, and I asked Karen what happened the next day, and she was like, oh, I got really creeped out by something in that corner, and it's right in that corner of the room, and that's exactly what I saw. I felt the same exact thing.
That corner of the room is also, it was, my mom was reading, and she heard like a pig, like a squeal of a pig or some like weird squeal or something, and it scared her half to death, but there was nothing there. And then there was also a time when she had like a touch lamp, and she unplugged it, and it was still turning on. Like she showed Paul, my oldest brother, she was telling him about it, and he's like, that can't be right. And she unplugged it, and then she showed it to him, and it was doing it. It was like turning on and off, even though it wasn't even plugged in. There's no batteries.
I don't know if
it
it stored energy after you unplugged it or not. But.
Yeah, it was weird. So that was all happened in that same like corner. It's just a real creepy part of the house.
My mom used to tell us all kinds of scary things. Oh, I was sewing in the living room today, and I heard someone walking upstairs, and it sounded like they were dragging chains, and you know.
And she always says, they went into your room. It was right where your bed is, like Saint.
I had a big room up above the end living room, and if you look up the stairway, there was a banister that went up, and then there was like a little landing like in front of the door. So the door would cast the light onto the side wall. And she's like, I saw a shadow walk right into your room. She's got to go to bed now.
My brother Rich says, why don't you wait till midnight to tell us?
Yeah, I could just wait till midnight.
She always had stories.
She
But
always
they were
had these creepy stories that she'd tell us, oh, you won't believe what I saw today.
Whenever someone passed away, she would see them, too.
She would always have a dream of relatives that died. That night, she'd have a dream of them.
Oh.
And they'd be talking to her or something. And then the next day, she'd get a call early in the morning that they passed away.
And then there was a time I was younger, me and I don't know if Arno had this dream, but me and all my sisters and my mom had a dream. There was this one room that was a real scary room. It was a bedroom that didn't have an overhead light like all the others. And that room was really creepy, and nobody wanted that room. The boys were in it. All the boys slept in it. And then my sister Annette had it a long time. But I had a dream that the room was empty. The only thing in it was a rocking chair, and there was curtains blowing, but the window was shut, and there were these sheer white curtains, and the chair was rocking by itself. And I was outside the room, but I was peeking in, and I could see that. My mom and all my sisters had the exact same dream, all of us. When I described it, my mother described it like as if, and it's still, I was probably 4 or 5 when I had that dream, and I still remember it like it was yesterday. And when my mom described it, she described it like exactly what was in my head. And all my sisters said, I had that dream too. We all, like 5 of us, had the same dream. It was really creepy. I don't know if it's something that we all saw actually happen in the room. And maybe I don't know, but it was weird. And then there's the time you were taking a shower.
I was just come out of the bathroom in the downstairs, and I heard someone there's like a stairwell in my sister's room up on the top, and I heard someone moving furniture. You know, I called upstairs, Ma, are you up there? And then they came into the house, like through the front door, and they're like, oh, we just went to the store. I was there alone, and I heard someone moving furniture. I went up there later, and the room was empty. They were making room because my brother Paul was going to take that room. So, yeah, there was a lot of weird things that happened at the house. My nephew, PJ, he was watching TV, and he said footsteps walked right by him and went into the kitchen, from the living room into the kitchen, and walked right by him. And he was freaked out. Everybody that went there had creeped out stories.
Yeah, we had some scary Halloween parties too that people wouldn't even come back to our house after. It scared the hell out of them. We saw, like Arno said, you saw a ghost cat or something. Looked like we didn't have animals in the house, and there was a cat that he saw just kind of walk by. It was weird stuff like that.
I saw a cat walk into the room in my peripheral vision.
Patty saw a guy in a hat up in that bedroom off the hallway.
Yeah.
Like my sister-in-law.
I would be on the couch and start falling asleep. You're watching TV late at night, start falling asleep, and I don't know, I guess they call it the exploding head syndrome. You're like, oh, you're just on the edge of falling asleep, and you hear a voice like, "Wah!" and it makes you jump awake.
I've had that so many times.
I wonder what it's saying because I don't have a chance to hear it, but it's like somebody like yells at you or something and right in your face, and you're like, you jump awake. It's terrible.
I've had that even at hotels I've stayed at. You know, it doesn't normally happen ever, but then all of a sudden I'm in a different place, and that's happened. It's happened in an Amish hotel I stayed in one time. So we've got tons and tons of stories. I want to put together a book about it. My mom and my sister Greta saw a lot of it, but all of us have seen things and heard things. I got pushed up the stairs once. I was trying to be real careful because I had cocoa in my hand, and I'm walking real carefully, and all of a sudden something just shoved me, and my arm went flying, and it was all over me. You know, I remember being scared all the time when I was little. I was the youngest one. I'm 6 years younger than Arno. and I was the youngest, and I was always scared, especially with my mom telling us these stories, you know. but besides that, it just always felt really scary. I had one dream when I was about 5. I think we had all these kinds of games. We played lots of board games. We had a Ouija board, and we didn't know it was bad or anything. We barely used it. But it was under my bed at one point, and I had a dream, a recurring nightmare, that I had to go run down the back behind the barn and bury it at midnight. And behind the barn is really scary. It's like my dad had a workshop down there. There's this hill, like equipment, and it's all kind of just like overgrown, grassy. Yeah, it's creepy. So that dream was scary, and of course something was chasing me back up the hill, and here I am 5 years old, and I'm dreaming this stuff. It's like, thanks. I don't know, there had to have been some kind of spirits in the house making me, dream like that. Usually little kids don't dream of that kind of stuff. Even now, my brother still lives there, my oldest brother. You go in there, and I don't really feel anything now, but like, I would never, ever stay there overnight by myself. There's no way. I just couldn't do it. It's scarier than I've been all over the country to haunted places. That's what I do, and that's like the scariest house because it's got like personal memories attached to it, and it's just really scary.
Well, that's about it.
I'm sure there's more, but we've taken enough of your time.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. I'll get working on your Shannon LeGros doll.
I hope you like your Squatch clock.
All right, good night.
Hey, Shannon, it's Greg Ghost Ludwig calling to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And also just to leave you a little story of one of my encounters. All of my encounters will be forthcoming in my book, which will center around my experiences with the Ghost Adventures crew and Zach Bagan's Haunted Museum. There have just been so many different, amazing coincidences and stories that have occurred since that time and before, of course, too. I want to talk to you about a friend of mine named Claire. Now, that's not her real name because I really haven't had an opportunity to talk to her about this first. But I've spoke to you about her before and told you how her home is probably the most haunted location on the planet, in my opinion. She lives in the very deep South, in the old South, and around many cemeteries and old homes. And I've just had many experiences with Claire, talking, paranormal over the phone. What I wanted to tell was just a little piece of that story. Claire, who is clairvoyant and a medium, even though she doesn't consider herself that, she just feels she's a sensitive, but oftentimes would have spirits come and talk to her and appear to her constantly, every day. One day, while on the phone, she mentioned to me that there was a spirit that wanted to communicate with me. And I said, well, okay, that's interesting. And the spirit introduced itself as Christy with a K. And Claire thought that perhaps I might have known this person at one point, and maybe they had passed away from what appeared to be some sort of a poisoning of some sort, a bee sting or something like that. But regardless of that, Christy with a K came to Claire to give me a clear message. And though I'm not going to reveal what that message was to me now, what I wanted to mention was, these people, these clairvoyants, these mediums, you wonder, well, are they just crazy? Do they really speak to spirits? Do they really see these spirits? And so I think that's an age-old question. Do these people see things, or are they just crazy? And I don't think that Claire is crazy, and this is why. During our conversation, Christy with a K told Claire that I would know that this conversation was true, and I would know that she was with me by two distinct signs. There'd be a single bird that would fly in front of me, and there'd be a single feather. And I said, at the time, I said, well, okay, whatever, that's great. So I was on my project up in the Santa Clarita Valley area, and I was parked on a flat dirt pad, not a stitch of green on this whole 5-6 acre pad. And I was parked there just doing some paperwork. When out of nowhere, a little sparrow came and flew right down to my windshield and sat there for a second until another one came and chased it off. And I found that really odd because this was about a half hour after the phone conversation that we had just had regarding Christy with a K. And I found that very interesting. Okay, well, hey, there's a bird. About a half hour later, I was driving over to my office trailer, and son of a gun, on the way, there's a paved road that leads the way, and not too many people drive on that. And son of a gun, going about 30 miles an hour, down right directly in front of my truck, literally right at the middle of my truck, flew a single feather, about 4 inches long, floated right down the center of my truck. Of course, this all happened within about a 2-hour period of time, which was really phenomenal to me. Well, anyway, I guess that's sort of what I wanted to tell you, Shannon. And there are many, many, many stories that I have, amazing experiences that will all come out in my book, hopefully shortly. And again, just want to say Merry Christmas. And hey, I believe maybe these people are, a lot of them at least Claire, are definitely legitimate. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Hey, Shannon. It's Nick. For all those who don't know who I am, my original story was on Shannon's Halloween episode, The Oath with the Trees, which was specifically named after my account. The stories I'm going to be sharing tonight aren't all about me. I'm mainly going to be sharing stories with a friend who had a deep impact on my life, and a friend who I feel the woods was partially to blame for him taking his own life. I'm not going to use his name. We'll call him Jay. Jay had gifts. I think he was indeed a medium. I took Jay out to those woods before, and they affected him deeply. But before I ever did, he told me that he was tormented by 2 entities. Well, actually 3 if you count the black dog. But he said one of them, which he called the Reaper's twin, which he claimed was always after his soul. I don't know anything about it, other than he would constantly see it, and it would scare him badly. I remember a time when we were out in my uncle's woods at night, and he freaked the hell out because he seen it. I didn't see anything, but he was freaking out. So we got out of there. And then he would tell me he'd always see a shadow man in a hat with a giant shadow dog. He called me one time in tears because he was stuck in his car, and this shadow dog and the shadow man were in the empty cornfield across the street from his house. I felt powerless to help him, but I should have never taken him out to those woods, because whatever is out there followed him home and tormented him and everyone else that lived in that house. People who claim drugs and alcohol don't have an effect on the paranormal and demonic aspects of the subject are full of shit, because that man suffered day and night. I seen things about him no one else seen, not even his mother knew. I told her, but she never talked to me since. I miss him every day. But now I'll get to stories that have happened to me and my fiance, who I will leave unnamed. Things seem to always pick up around the fall, winter time, but before this, last summer, my fiance and I were in my parents' house, just homesteading, and we were just watching a TV show, and she steps out to go to the bathroom, and my door is shut. All of a sudden, it was like someone ran full speed into my door, and it just creaks open. She ain't there. She's still in the bathroom. And she asked me, what the hell was that? And I said, I didn't know. Then I go downstairs. The basement door is open. But I don't think that had anything to do with the thing out there in the woods per se, because she used to clean at this old tower building in South Bend. And this place, she said, was extremely haunted. She's a clairvoyant, and she said that place was just filled with activity. It was built in the early 1920s. It's a creepy building, I'll tell you that. But then, come fall, the dark stuff always goes on. I had something come over me, and I had something telling me to blow off my head with a shotgun, but I didn't, because it didn't feel right. I just got extremely sad for nothing, and then extremely angry then. I attribute this to those woods. I haven't been out there in almost a year now, because every time I step out there, something bad always happens, and it got so bad that I swore an oath to her that I would never go out there again. And it hurts me because I grew up out there. I loved it out there. Whatever out there, pure evil. Just pure evil. Last month, she was cleaning her room. My fiance was. It's a small room, but she has a bookshelf that's about 6 feet away from her bed. It came flying off like it was torn off and flew at her on her bed. This thing should have just fell straight down, but no, it flew across her room at her. And then she says she's been hearing a stomping in her house and a banging on her door. This all just started. I haven't been out there, so I don't know what the heck is going on now. The house itself was built in the 40s, so it's not that old per se. And the last story I have involves me. It literally just happened an hour ago. My fiance always told me, her grandma would say, if you hear a voice calling you and there's no one there, don't answer it. It's the devil. It's a Hispanic thing, I guess. Well, I'm taking a shower, and as I step out, I hear my sister call me, and instinctively, I say, what? Silence. No answer. I open up the door and say, what do you need? And she says, I didn't call you. And I knew. I'm being called by a devil. So I expect stuff to start up again. And then I get a text from my fiance saying, I called your name, Nicholas. I showed her the text and she showed me hers. She never sent it. So unless someone in the federal government is playing trick on me, this is very disturbing. Lastly, I'll throw in a bonus story. My neighbor told me he lives in the same neighborhood. His wife had a crystal she got from one of them shops, and she had it on her shelf, and the thing, I guess, came flying off and flew across the living room. I don't know what the hell is going on. I just hope it don't get any worse. I forgot some very interesting stories that Jay told me before he passed away. There's a little town in Indiana called New Carlisle. I won't say exactly where, but he told me driving through there at night, there's an old house, the manor, and he drove by and there was the spirit of a lady there in Victorian dress. And you know how in those old horror films, the Phantom's jaw would drop to the floor? Well, he said her jaw dropped to her knees. Her eyes were pitch black, and she screamed at him in a shrieking scream. That's not the only story he told me that was like this. He lived in a heavily wooded area, and when he was a kid, him and his friends were walking down this country road at night, surrounded by trees, and he said what he calls a banshee came out of the woods screaming at them, chasing them through there. He says is a she because he's seen her. She had long gray hair and a white dress, just screaming at, chasing them down the street. When they left, she'd go back in, but if they came back, she would come out screaming at them. Now, his friend had an encounter with what I believe was a skinwalker out there, but I would have to get his permission to even tell that story. That story is crazy too, because I've been out there at night and it is creepy as hell. I wouldn't go out there unarmed. In fact, one time he called me up frantically at 10:30 at night, freaking out because he went out to his car and he said there were coyotes howling out there. Then something roared like a coyote, but it was too big and they all shut up. I often thought that maybe he had a dog man out there. I've been out there before. It's got everything that they would need, and it's on the Michigan state line with Indiana. Well, I hope you all stay safe. Have a good New Year. For the love of all the gods, don't touch Ouija boards. Good night.
Hi, Shannon. This is Nancy from Connecticut. I had promised to call in and give you my first official ghost story. Forgive me, I am sick, and so my voice sounds horrible. But here we go. So I've had a lifetime of paranormal experiences, but my first official ghost was actually my grandmother. This was my mother's mom, and we were really, really close. We spent a lot of time together, mostly gardening. I think I got my green thumb from her. Anyway, at the end of my grandmother's life, she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and we moved her into a convalescent home. I was around 12 at that age. So that was really hard. So I was around 12, as I said. It was the middle of the night. I had gotten up out of bed to go to the bathroom and to get something to drink from the kitchen. And as soon as I walked into the kitchen, I saw her. She was sitting at the kitchen table. She was sitting in my father's chair, which was the head of the table. I grew up in a really old-fashioned family, so we each had our own seats. My father sat at the head of the table, and I thought it was super funny that she chose to sit there because her and my dad were always at odds, kind of, about nothing really, but I just thought it was really funny that she chose to sit in my father's chair. This is probably going to sound strange, but I wasn't really surprised. As I said, even though this was my first official ghost, I had so many experiences. Most of them were auditory, but so I wasn't surprised. I guess most people would be, but I wasn't. And she looked at me, and I looked at her, and she kind of smiled and tilted her head towards me, and then she just kind of was there for a moment, and then she was gone. Anyway, it was only a few hours later. I think it was like 4:30 in the morning. They called my mom to say that she had passed. Of course, I already knew. So that was kind of weird. And that made my mother really uncomfortable. That's a whole other story. But I was there beside my mother when she took the phone call. And she told me, but I already knew. So yeah, that's my first official ghost story. As I said, it happened when I think it was 11 or 12, I want to say. And it was in December. It was early in December. And it's funny because my dad passed in December too. But anyway, that's my first official ghost story. I'm glad my first ghost was my gram. I loved her very much. She was a great woman. She was so strong. And I'm glad she came to say goodbye. I find great comfort in that. And I feel really blessed by that experience. So there it is. Thank you, Shannon, for all your hard work. And I want to say Happy New Year to you and Happy New Year to everyone out there. Bye.
Hey, Shannon, this is Michael from Alabama. I've been an insider for a good while, listening to the podcast for probably ever since you started it. But I was going to let you know, and sorry that I'm driving if you could hear me driving. I was going to give you my encounter. It was me and my dad. We're both electricians, and we were doing some electrical work at a cabin probably about 25 miles from my house. And this was in a remote location, so remote that cell phones wouldn't even work in this place. And so my dad is doing some work up in the attic, and where I'm standing on the back porch of this lake house. And so I'm standing there, and I can see over the lake, and over the lake is probably about 75 yards from me, and it's on a slope. The house is up on a slope. I am looking across the lake, just kind of scanning the lake, and from the left of me, I see this deer running out of the woods, like it's being chased by something. And so this is around March, a couple of years ago, and so, sorry to get to that point, this deer is running, and all of a sudden I'm like, well, he's running from something. Well, all of a sudden, right behind it, there's this monkey-looking thing that I thought that it was just a monkey. And then all of a sudden I thought, well, why is there a monkey chasing a deer in Alabama, of all places? Well, in my head, I didn't think, I don't know, I was just kind of confused about it, kind of like, what is going on? Well, it probably chased it 10 yards before I realized that on the hill above the deer, there was another one, which I was thinking was a monkey, coming down the hill, and it tackled the deer. Like, it tackled it into the water. And so as I'm watching this, I'm going, there's these two monkeys chasing this deer, and they've tackled it in the water. I'm thinking, what are they going to do with this deer. And then I finally realized, I was like, wait a minute, these are not monkeys at all. These are what I've been listening to podcasts and listening to your show and other Bigfoot encounters, and I thought, these are two Bigfoots chasing this deer, and they're getting their lunch right now. And so anyways, they run and tackle this deer, and they break the deer's neck in the water after they tackled it. And I remember after they did that, it was like they did this celebratory yell, like it was like a roar, but I don't know. I'm terrible at it, and I'm very sorry. But it was like that. It was like they were celebrating this kill, and I remember them throwing the deer over their shoulder and walking up the hill. And the whole time I'm thinking, oh my God, I've just seen two of them run this deer down like it was nothing and crack its neck and just walk off like it was just like it was just amazing. So anyways, I had my phone in my hand, but I never realized to take a picture or a video or anything because it happened so fast. After a couple of hours of me seeing them do that, I'll walk over, and because the hill is so on a slope, I couldn't really tell how tall they were from the angle I was at and the angle they were at, but there was a branch that was right above them. So when I walked over there to measure this branch, which I did very slowly, looking around, making sure that there was nothing around, they weren't going to come back for like dessert or anything like that. So I walked over there and I measured this tree branch, and the tree branch was almost 8 feet tall where they were standing, and they weren't very far from that tree branch. And it may have been the slope of the hill, but I couldn't really gauge. But like I said, they weren't that far from this tree branch. So I just wanted to call and let you know and give you my encounter. I've maybe told like a couple of people about this. I maybe have emailed another podcast and told them about this. But outside of that, that's my only encounter. And so I hope that you're able to use this, and I hope you find it very interesting. And I also enjoy your show.
Hi, this is Max Hawthorne, author of the Cronus Rising series of paleo novels. I'd like to give a shout out to Shannon LeGros and all her listeners at Into the Fray Radio, and to wish all of you a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. You guys rock. This is my sea monster version of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, inspired by my books. I hope you like it. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the sea, the ex-fish and sharks were feeding with glee. The krakens were nestled in their dark, chilly lair, in the hopes that Max Hawthorne soon would be there. The mosasaurs drifted on their warm, watery beds, while dreams of tan surfers waltzed through their heads. And Tartarus's chronosaurs, their fins they did slap, as they all settled down for a long evening's nap. When suddenly my sonar, it started to chatter. I rushed from my cabin to see what was the matter. I sprang to the gunwales, my movements were sleek, reached for my searchlight and lit up the deep. When what to my astonished eyes should appear but a mantis-shaped sub and 7 creatures to fear. The sub's pilot smirked, then I saw him relax, and I knew in that moment it had to be Max. Faster than megalodons, his pliosaurs they came, and he whistled and shouted as he called them by name. Now Fafnir, now Surtur, now Romulus, now Remus. On Goliath, on Charybdis. Hey, no hiding, Proteus. All the way to the surface and breach for the stars. Now dash away, dash away, dash away hard. Then up to my houseboat, his monsters they swam. The seas round us emptied, as marine life it ran. Then suddenly a series of frightening bangs, the gnashing and crashing of mouthfuls of fangs. As I stepped fearfully back, my eyes filled with dread, Max jumped from his sub onto one pliosaur's head. He wore a red wetsuit from his head to his feet, and a pair of high-tech goggles that looked oh so neat. A sack filled with books lay across his broad back, and he looked like an agent as he opened his pack. His eyes, how they glittered, his teeth were so white, his biceps were huge, his buns oh so tight. He had an angular face, but a bit of a belly that jiggled as he moved, like strawberry jelly. I laughed when I saw him, but then I grew quiet, fearful I'd end up on his beast's diet. He glanced left and right before pulling me close, so near I could see up his pliosaur's nose. He said as he gave me a package or two, "Here's the novels you ordered, and a novella too. Read fast, my friend, for Tiamat's broken free. If not stopped, she's the end for both you and me." As his sub screamed a warning, he yelled o'er the sound, "Well, I guess she and I can go one more round." "Can I help?" I asked, scared the queen might be near. He thought for a moment, then said, "Sure, hold my beer." He sprang back in his sub, then signaled his team. They submerged from sight like it was all a bad dream. But I heard him exclaim, ere he sank out of view, "Merry Christmas, my friend. Oh, and leave a review."
Well, I'm so-and-so. I was given this name by my parents. I've been to such and such a college. I've done these things in my profession. I produce a little biography. Buddha says, forget it. That's not true. That's some story. That's all gone. That's all past. I want to see the real you are now. Well, nobody knows who that is. Because we don't know ourselves except through listening to our echoes and consulting our memories. But then there's a real you, and that again leads us back to this question. Who are you? That is the real you. We shall see how they play with this exam by the koans to get you to come out of your shell and find out who you really are. quite divided on this. They will say, no, we don't believe literally in reincarnation. That after your funeral, you will suddenly become somebody different, living somewhere else. They will say reincarnation means this, that if you sitting here now are really convinced that you're the same person who walked in the door half an hour ago, you're being reincarnated. If you are liberated, you'll understand that you're not. The past doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist. There is only the present. That's the only real you that there is. The Zen master Dogen put it in this way. He said, the spring does not become the summer. First there is summer, and then there is spring. When you settle down in the train to read your newspaper and so on, you are not the same person who a little while ago left the platform. If you think you are linking your moments up in the chain. And this is what binds you to the wheel of birth and death. But when you know that every moment in which you are is the only moment, this comes into Zen. A master will say to somebody, get up and walk across the room. And he comes back and he says, where are your footprints? They've gone. So where are you? Who are you? When we are asked who we are, we usually give a kind of recitation of a history.